I live in a quiet, rural town where nothing much ever happens. The kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked, where everyone knows everyone else, and where the nights are so silent that you can hear the wind rustling through the trees like a whisper. For the most part, I enjoy the solitude. It helps with my work. I'm an artist, and the peaceful environment gives me time to focus on my paintings without distraction. But then one night, something changed. It started with a light in the window across from mine. My neighbor's house had been empty for weeks. They had gone on a long trip, leaving the place completely vacant. I wasn't expecting to see anything, but as I absent-mindedly glanced out my window, I noticed it, a dim, flickering glow, like a candle burning behind the old lace curtains. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light or a reflection from my own house. But the longer I watched, the more I realized something was off. The light wasn't stationary. It was moving slowly, methodically from one window to another, as if someone was pacing inside. A chill ran down my spine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the owners had come back early? Maybe a caretaker was checking on the house? Still, something didn't feel right. I grabbed my phone and called my neighbor, Mark. When he answered, his voice was groggy. He was clearly somewhere far away. "Hey Mark, are you back in town?" "No, still in Florida." "Why?" "I see a light in your house. It looks like someone's inside." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, in a serious tone, he said, "That's impossible. No one should be there. I locked everything up before I left." I peered out the window again. The figure still moved, slow and deliberate. My stomach twisted into knots. "I think you should call the cops," Mark said. "Just in case." I agreed, though part of me felt silly. Maybe it was just some squatter or a local teenager messing around. But when the police arrived, they found nothing. The house was locked, the doors and windows secure. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints in the dust-covered floors, and most disturbing of all, no source for the light I had seen. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in my house made me jump. Every shadow seemed to move. But by morning, I convinced myself it had just been my imagination playing tricks on me. Until the next night. Just as the clock struck midnight, the light returned. This time, it wasn't just moving, it was flickering erratically. The figure was still there, pacing back and forth, its shadow stretching long and thin against the dimly lit room. My breath hitched. I grabbed my binoculars and focused on the window. That's when I saw it. It wasn't a person. Not exactly. The figure had no discernible features, just a dark silhouette. And then, as if it sensed me watching, it stopped and turned its head toward me. I stumbled back, heart pounding. I could feel its gaze, even though I couldn't see its eyes. Then the light went out. The next day, I decided I needed answers. I spoke with some of my older neighbors. Old Mrs. Thompson, who had lived on the street for over 40 years, gave me a knowing look. "That house has a past," she said, lowering her voice. "Back in the 60s, a woman named Eleanor lived there. Sweet lady, but she was left at the altar. They say she never left the house after that. One day, the mailman found her, dead in front of the window, still in her wedding dress." A cold shiver ran through me. "Ever since then," Mrs. Thompson continued, "people say they see her light. They say she's still waiting." I didn't know what to think. I wasn't a superstitious person. That night, I decided to test a theory. If it was truly a spirit, maybe it would respond to something. I lit a candle in my own window and waited. At exactly midnight, the light appeared in the opposite house, and the figure was there again, staring at me. I swallowed hard. Summoning all my courage, I raised a hand and waved. To my horror, the shadow lifted its own hand and mimicked the gesture. Sleep became impossible. Every night, the figure would appear, pacing, watching. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to see it up close.